Between stays and boning, there's way too much potential for wordplay in one project. Back when I made my corset belt waist snatcher thingies last year? That was a while ago now. I mentioned that I was too intimidated by patterns to make a real corset. And a lot of you were like, you don't need a pattern, do whatever you want. That's on me. I used the wrong terminology and therefore did not convey what I actually meant. Wow. What I actually meant is that I would like to create a pair of historically adequate, historically inspired, historically specific stays, which I would need a pattern to do because my knowledge of dress history basically all comes down to one 50-page research paper I voluntarily wrote in high school, which I titled The History of Western Fashion, 1000 AD to 1945. Why 1945, you may ask? Because I got bored. Seriously, no one was making me write this paper, and trust me when I say that neither of my parents wanted to read and grade it. And 90% of my research came straight from Wikipedia. I think my mom just slapped a 95 on it in the end because she was like, yeah, okay, whatever, you did a lot of unnecessary work, good for you. Anyway, all that to say that I do not know enough or want to research enough to pattern out a historically adequate pair of stays for some specific time period. So despite being intimidated, I'm gonna use a pattern. I've actually been really wanting to challenge myself more in the world of sewing lately. I've spent years now creating a wardrobe of comfy knit dresses and split side garments and stuff. So it's time to branch out. It's time to try using more patterns. We did a dress, we did a bag, we're gonna do stays. Now, why do I want historical stays? To see how they feel, because they look cool, for the pure sewing challenge of it all, for shits and giggles. It's all of these, all of the above. So I asked around about which pattern company to use, because that is also not my area of expertise, and I'm sure there are many, many good ones, but the one that was most commonly recommended to me was Red Threaded. So let's take a look through what patterns they have available and therefore see what my options are. Because yeah, I'm not even tied to like a specific era yet. I am starting from a big ol' welcome to the rarely seen and very boring office space. Woohoo! It's on my list, y'all. Make your own digital PDF patterns. So right now looks like they have 1750s, 1780s, 1790s, 1810s, 1810 short stays. That would be interesting, but I feel like that's not the thing I want to learn right now. Maybe next time. 1830s, 1860s, 1880s. I'm gonna end up going purely off of vibes here, like what I like the look of, because again, I don't really care about which historical period it is. This isn't the base for some upcoming costume or something, just in case anybody is like, oh, she's gonna start making some historical costume. No, this is a one-off. This is a learning experience. I think I prefer the look of the older ones, like 1750s, 1780s. I'm not sure if I want one with like the little tabbies though. Okay, I'm gonna go with 1750s. Again, for vibes. And basically no other reason. So, there's gonna be some supplies I'm gonna need to order, namely boning, because I want to do this kind of more legit and not like zip tie boning stuff. So I'll see you, I don't know, in like a week, however long delivery takes. Wawak has boning, I'm pretty sure they do. While I twiddle my thumbs and wait for boning to arrive, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Blueland. One of the easiest changes I've been able to make to remove some plastic from this house is switching to Blueland's cleaning products. After all, so much of the content of the cleaning products we constantly use is just water. Water that I'm paying extra for and that has to be contained in these thick, chunky plastic jugs. That feels wildly unnecessary to me. I've got water here, so I've been very happy to get my house sparkling clean and smelling delightful without any plastics involved. Blueland's products meet the highest standard of clean. They're effective, yet gentle on kids, pets, plants, and the planet. The tablet formulas are 100% microplastic free and made with certified clean ingredients, and they come in these great metal containers that you can use again and again. Even the refill packaging is completely compostable or recyclable. I love how easy the laundry tablets are to use. You just throw one straight in the washing machine drum. They lift even the toughest of stains, keeping whites white and colors bright. Right now, you can get Blueland's holiday hand soap kit with 3 delightful smells for the season. Wintry pine is my favorite. It smells so fresh and invigorating. Just fill the forever bottle with warm water, pop a tablet in, and you've got hand soap ready to use in minutes. You don't even need to shake it. Blueland is sharing a special offer just for my viewers. All you have to do is click the link below to get 15% off your first kit. Thank you to Blueland for sponsoring today's video, and let's return to the stays. Supplies have been procured, fabric has been washed, procrastination has occurred. Y'all, I don't know what it is about this pattern specifically, not even this pattern. I think it's just the thought of making stays that actually look good and fit well. Maybe it's straight up just because of the amount of bias binding I know is going to be on this. I've been procrastinating on continuing with this project, which, you know, I've been procrastinating for a full-on year on even doing this project, so am I surprised? No, I am not. I looked through the pattern and half of my brain went, oh, okay, this looks pretty easy. And the other half of my brain went, ah. But what do we do when we are overwhelmed and intimidated? Even if that's just by a pattern, we do one thing at a time. Let's go print the pattern out. It's a little wild how much we will avoid doing something we actually want to do sometimes, huh? I'm not entirely sure what it is about making stays that makes the creative part of my brain start cringing and whining. I suppose I'm afraid I'll take the time to do a really good job and make them look really nice and then they won't fit? Or maybe I'm afraid that I'll get overwhelmed, rush through it, not make them look good, and then it'll be like, hey, why'd you even bother? The irony is that at this point, I've made several things that are fairly complex. I've done those corset belts, I've experimented with grommets, I've hand-stitched bias binding. And on top of that, the nature of stays, which lace up in the back, makes them pretty adjustable. So like, even if they aren't 100% a perfect fit, I think they'll fit me just fine. I'm making a large, by the way, in case anyone wanted to know. Ultimately, it feels like the concept of stay making has just become overblown in my brain. I associate it with people who are careful, experienced sewists, and maybe even perfectionists, which I am not. And there's this split down the center of my brain, with half of me thinking I'd like to be a more careful, experienced sewist, and this is a step in that direction, and half of me screaming, no, I just want to keep freehanding stuff onto stretch fabric and whipping it up in a couple of hours forever, don't make me grow! So yeah, crazy how we can both desire growth and resist it at the same time. But basically, I convinced myself to get this pattern made and cut out by promising myself I could start a puzzle afterward. Reward systems! They work for pets and kids, so don't go around pretending they don't work for adults too. I then used that puzzle, along with some chores and other stuff, as an excuse to procrastinate sewing the stays until tomorrow. Wahoo! The pattern strongly advises making a mock-up, so let's just call this a mock-up, shall we? I think for some people, for the way their brains work, doing a mock-up probably helps them move forward with an intimidating project, because it's not the real thing, you know? You don't have to be as careful, and you're not using the nice fabric, and it's okay if it's not perfect, and all that stuff. Yeah, not for my brain. Isn't it fascinating how different we all are? If I'm intimidated, then I want to dive in and start doing the real thing. No practicing for me. Granted, I'm benefited by the fact that this is not some fancy fabric I paid a ton of money for. Pretty sure it came from remainders way back when. Nor do I need this garment for any specific reason. I don't even have a deadline beyond like, hey, this video should be coming out in a month. So I can make the thing for real and also call it a mock-up at the same time, because it's both for real and practice simultaneously. Huzzah! And here's the point where things started going south. The first few construction steps were all good, I understood, it seemed fine. Then around the point of sewing the boning channels, I got majorly confused. After reading through all the instructions a second time, I finally realized my confusion largely stemmed from just not liking the construction methods in this pattern, so I think I'm gonna go rogue. Also, I was still confused about some other stuff, but after staring at the ceiling for a while the puppy played conquering hero, one bit of confusion ironed itself out in my brain. I get it. You go this way and then this way. Now I understand. That is such a big yawn. Ugh. The thing I don't love is that they have you sewing the side seams last, like way last, after you've done the bias binding and put in the grommets and everything. I don't want to do that. I want my side seams to be enclosed like all the other seams, even if that makes it harder for me in some way. So I'm rebelling, and we're gonna find out somewhat soon-ish if that will lead me straight down the path of regret. And I get that leaving the side seams exposed like that is probably very beneficial for adjusting the fit of the stays. Like, yeah, there's usually a reason that experienced people say to do things in a certain way. But I have my own reason for not doing it that way, and it's, I don't wanna. That's the fun thing about making something just for the fun of it, and for your own growth and for yourself. You get to make the rules. Anyway, I got the whole thing sewn into a big ol' loop and then spent a good amount of time pinning it all together to perfectly line up the seams and the edges, and then hand basting the 2 layers in place all the way across. I mean, come on, that's growth in itself, right? Mind-blowing, I'm hand basting things. And I'm glad I did, because when it came time to draw all these boning channels on, the pins would have massively gotten in the way. The basting was way, way better. Okay, let's sew some boning channels, shall we? And in no time at all, I had messed up. I messed up. So much boning! There are so many channels and lines and stitches and threads, and it is quite confusing, y'all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not right. Dang it! Great, this isn't confusing at all. Oh, we can do this. So that's fine, but this has to go. Let's try this again. This would arguably be easier to wrestle through here if it was 2 separate pieces and not one giant one. But I accept that I have brought this upon myself. Okay. Well, that's the front part done. I'm not good at this kind of trusting the process. Like, there is so much red ink and hot pink thread. It's very hard to know if I did anything right. It could all be wrong. I don't know. Well, that's a problem. Finally, yes, the next day actually, I was able to take out all of those basting stitches and iron away the pin marks and tra-la! I'm excited to get boning in, but I figured I should actually go ahead and put the grommets in first, since I won't be able to test it in any real way until I can lace it up in the back. I'm now fully free-flying when it comes to the instructions. I'm pretty sure they said to bone and bind before grommeting. But now, we bone! Wanna know a secret? I ordered all the boning I needed for this, because it's all like separate pre-finished pieces at very specific lengths and amounts and stuff, and then it arrived and I was missing the 2 11-inch pieces. Not like, hey, I ordered them and they didn't arrive for some reason, just I didn't order them, I guess. So I had to do another whole order and wait for that to arrive. Yay! Probably could have just stuck zip ties in those 2 channels, but I was committed. Also, I think it was maybe my desire to procrastinate on this project sneaking out of my subconscious. Saboteur. Just putting that one horizontal bone across the top already put so much structure into this. I love boning. It's so cool. Drum roll. No. I forgot to sew one. Dang it. Okay. She be boned. Ooh. Should I test it? Will that make me more excited to do all the binding, which I am currently not very excited to do? I think I should test it. Let me note here that I did set the grommets in the pattern necessary for spiral lacing, but I failed to watch the video on how to do spiral lacing yet, so for this quick little test, we're just gonna do some good old crissy-crossy stuff. Okay, well that was fun, I guess. I'll be back. I'm back. Never mind, Matt is still asleep. I will do this on my own. Yo, this is pretty cool. I feel so supported and also hugged. Some people in like the sensory zone really enjoy having clothing that is pressed tightly against them. I enjoy it sometimes. There's sometimes when I'm like, ooh, that's really comforting. And then there's other times that I'm like, I don't want anything touching me. This is a really nice feeling of clothing pressing around you because it's so like even around your whole body. Anyway, let me just get like excited for stuff that people who wear stays have known for ages. All right, I'd say that this has sufficiently succeeded in making me excited to finish the rest. We gotta finish off the whole top, finish off the whole bottom. and then we're good. I feel like I don't even have to tell you why I'm dreading the binding, but I'll tell you anyway. I'm not super good at binding, on the machine at least. However, I already hand-stitched the backside of the binding on the straps, and considering this thing is looking pretty dang good, and I have the time, I'm not at all resisting the idea of hand-stitching the backside of all the remaining binding as well. It'll be fun. I don't mind some peaceful hand stitching sometimes. So the top edge wasn't too bad. We got it done, we got the straps on, it's looking good. But oh, those tabs along the bottom. Going around the curve of the straps was already difficult for me. Getting up into the V points of these little tabbies around the bottom, well, it doesn't even seem possible. My brain doesn't grasp it. Ironically, as I was sitting there hand-stitching binding, I was watching Ash Bentley's Fall Witch video where she just whipped her way through binding around tab stays just like these, and I was like, am I being a total wimpus about this? But I studied the instructions thoroughly, I studied the photos they have of the finished pieces thoroughly, I demanded Ash tell me her secrets. Okay. It kind of feels like there's no really clean way to get bias tape up in a V like that, other than pre-sewing it into a V, which seems difficult. It's always a little bit funky, a little bit folded, very tricky, possibly frustrating as crap, so I figured, you know what? Skip it. Skip it altogether. Since I'm already hand sewing a ton anyway, I'm just gonna turn the two sides of the entire bottom edge inward and hand stitch them closed. What fun! To be clear, it wasn't actually fun. In fact, it was probably way more persnickety and frustrating than the binding would have been. But I was committed. So committed that I actually stitched one tab, thought, come on, really? Just do the binding. Seam ripped it all out, and then thought, wait, no, I really don't want to do the binding, and started over. 10 out of 10. Do not highly recommend. That was tedious. I don't mind a bit of hand sewing, but this was not pleasant. It was the having to turn in all of the edges and getting up in those V's and everything that was not a lot of fun. But it's done now, except I'm kinda thinking, I don't know, maybe I'd kind of like to embroider around the entire hem. I don't know. I might leave that for like a project at a later date. Cause right now, I don't really have anything to wear under this. Like skirts or dresses, sure, I could probably come up with something. Actually, that blue, I could just do that. Well, whatever, regardless. I wanna make a chemise to put under this, so let's do that. Let's speedrun making a chemise, shall we? To be clear, I'm not at all gonna speedrun the actual making. That will take just as long as it ever would, but I am gonna trot through telling you about it so we can get to that final product. I washed and dried 3 fabric options yesterday, thinking I'd have a hard time choosing, but yeah, it's gonna be this stuff. I like the way it flows and feels, and the little green plants on it are fun. Chemise of the most basic form equals 4 rectangles, 2 large, 2 small. The smaller rectangles get turned into sleeve tubes. I added some twill tape to make a cinched part and a ruffle sort of look. Then the 2 larger rectangles get sewn into a tube. Ice cream break.
So many skitteries.
Hello! This is 100% a necessary part of the process. What's up, Joe?
Steve.
Suspicious. Sleeve tubes get sewn to the big tube at the armpits. We add a channel around the top for a drawstring. I decided that felt more 1750s than elastic. Then we can get the drawstring drawstrung, throw a hem on that baby, and ba-bam, chemise. Let's take a look at the look. Well, y'all, I would call that a successful project. And I taught Matt how to do spiral lacing. Wahoo! I could have tried doing it by myself. It is possible, I have decent range of movement, but he's home, might as well put him to work. And it was way easier with him doing it. I need to put my hair up right now. Anyone who's ever like, why don't you wear your hair down more? It's because I can't stand it. Perfection. Ooh, I'm washed out. Better. These are real comfy, y'all. I like feeling so supported. And now I am interested to try some other time periods just to see like the difference of how they support you and how they hug you and everything. Because this, with the horizontal boning across it here, is very much like a push the bubbies up kind of thing. Push up and squeeze together. Yeah, so I'd be interested to see how other stays or even up to actual corsets feel. Don't know that I'll do that for a while though. This isn't something that I really specifically need for any reason. If I decide to go to the Ren Fair at any point, I've got an outfit. But these are more of sewing challenges and garment structure explorations. So I don't need to do one again anytime soon, but possibly in the future. And you know what? Now maybe I won't frickin' be intimidated by this anymore. Because yes, it's not, or no, it's not. It's not really a beginner sewing project. Like I found the instructions fairly confusing. I just didn't use a chunk of them. There's a lot of particularness to cutting out your pieces and marking things properly and stuff like that. So definitely, like, I'm glad I waited until I was fairly comfortable with sewing before taking this on. That being said, you know what I always say is if you really want that thing and you don't know how to sew yet, just try making that thing. You might as well start with something that you're excited about. But yeah, I would not call this a beginner level project. But at the same time, it wasn't nearly as difficult as I had conflated it to be in my head. It wasn't that hard. It took me a few days. The hardest part, honestly, was hand stitching the entire bottom edge together. And I do like how it looks. But if you do one that doesn't have all these little tabbies on the bottom, it would be significantly easier. The big thing I think I wanted to learn from these is where the boning is and what direction it goes. Because so far, every time I've boned something, usually just with zip ties, always with zip ties, I just do straight up and down boning all the way around. So the interesting thing here was how many are diagonal and running into each other, the fact that there's a horizontal one. I learned a lot from that when it comes to structure and shaping, which is also the reason that I'm interested in doing some other time periods of stays and corsets, because it's just fascinating how the way you construct the piece and the way that you bone the piece changes the shape and the support. I can see why so many people are fascinated in this and, you know, fully go down that path. I'm not gonna fully go down that path. As comfy as these are, and honestly, they are really comfy. The chemise is more restrictive than the stays are because I used like a drawstring instead of elastic, so my arms can only go so far. But the stays themselves, really quite comfy. I'm still gonna go take them off though. I need some lunch. Do you need some lunch? Dinner? Breakfast? Snack? Bathroom break? Go do those things. Hello. I'm in the mirror. Can you hear the jackhammering? That's happening now. You're so low down and far away in this frame. Monster in the pool. Whatever, we're doing it anyway.